Hey, how you doing, everybody? This is Raul with Charlie Mike, the podcast. I got a special guest with me today is Doug. He's the Senior Director Regional of Operations for the Mission Continues. Doug, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on the show. Tell me a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
So veteran, right? Served 24 years in the military. I served
Wow.
4 years in the Navy as a search and rescue swimmer. And then some would say I smartened up and moved over to the Army for the next 20 years. And I retired in the early 2013 as an artillery first sergeant out of Fort Drum, New York. Um, but I didn't stay at Fort Drum. I actually retired proper out in the Northwest, and I've recently relocated to Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville. Nice.
Yep.
You do a lot of traveling out there?
Try to every once in a while. Try to get around a little bit. When I was living out in the Northwest, I was stationed at a Joint Base Lewis McChord for a little bit. So I'd bought a house out there. So the Northwest is one of those areas where you can't really travel sort of very far. You know, you're at the end of the country. So you can go down to Southern California or whatnot, but the West Coast is pretty isolated. Luckily, out here, I'm just a short drive away from everything from New Orleans to North Carolina to Chicago. So it's great to be able to get around a little bit more.
Oh yeah. So it's let me ask you. Okay, so you're with Mission Continues. Tell
Yep.
me tell me what is Mission Continues?
Yeah, so the mission continues. We're a veteran service organization, a nonprofit that's been around for about since 2007. So I guess 14 years now, right, that we've been around. And we started out as an organization that provided fellowship opportunities for veterans, post 9/11 veterans, to continue to serve in their community, working with nonprofits. So they would do a 6-month fellowship with us where then they would connect with a nonprofit in their community and then work with them. Over time, though, our programs kind of shifted a little bit. And nowadays, we offer some very distinct opportunities for veterans. One is our service platoon program, where we have platoons in really almost 50 cities around the country right now. And these platoons act as chapters for veterans to be able to come together to serve in under-resourced communities. So really what we're doing with these service platoons is we're taking the fact that veterans already are predisposed towards volunteer service, and we're connecting them with other veterans in the community who want to go out and do great things and want to really kind of have an effect and an impact. I think over time, we all figured out that when we were in the military, you had an especially if you had an opportunity to deploy overseas or whatnot, then you already had a really strong impact, and every day was an impact. You wake up, you're taking care of soldiers, you're working in the community, you're working with either Afghanis or Iraqis or wherever you were stationed. So, and every day is a really impactful day. Then you leave the service, and maybe you're making widgets for 40 hours a week, and it's not very impactful anymore. You don't feel like you have that really kind of that heavy impact in your community anymore. So organizations like ours afford veterans an opportunity to continue to have an impact. Only this time it's going to be in their community instead of through a deployment to another country. So that's one of our programs that we offer. Another one would be our Service Leadership Corps program, where we identify veterans who want to grow their nonprofit skill set. And we go through a 6-month leadership development program where they then can apply those skills as they go ahead and work within the nonprofit sector themselves when they leave. We also have a women's veteran leadership program. I think that right now women veterans make up about 13% of our active forces, but they make up almost 50% of our membership. So we've really identified that women veterans are looking for opportunities to kind of serve and get out there. And then in the past, we've had our mass deployment program. Actually, we did a mass deployment in Houston recently, where we deployed several veterans, 100 veterans or so, to communities around the country for a week at a time, where they can go ahead and do 5 days straight of great service projects. So those are sort of what the mission continues entails, and I'm happy to dive a little deeper into that too.
That's one of the things that I was doing some research about you guys, and I love the fact that y'all reach out to the women veteran
Yeah.
because there's a lot of organizations out there that don't do that, and it's mainly they reach out to the male veteran, and I really like that. You guys
Yeah.
are doing amazing things. Y'all have a platoon from here in Houston.
Yep.
I always see the events that y'all have going on, and you guys, how do you decide? Like, okay, so the location of a platoon. So it's in Houston, but I notice a lot of the work is done like northern. How does that all work?
Well, so first of all, we look for communities where we have high concentration of veterans that want to get out and make a difference. And arguably, every community has veterans who want to make a difference. Doesn't matter if you're in Houston or if you're in Bismarck, North Dakota. They all have veterans that want to make a difference. And unfortunately, we can't be everywhere. So we try to identify where the great impact is going to be. And then once we do that, we conduct a needs assessment to the community. So it's not like veterans are going in telling the community where they think that the work needs to be done, but rather the community coming to the veterans saying, hey, we could really use help here. So, and these are communities that are traditionally under-resourced. It could be communities where they just really haven't gotten a fair shake compared to other communities around the area. I know that you're talking about in Houston, and I think in Houston they're doing some work in Kashmir Gardens. So it's areas,
By the way, yeah.
yeah, areas where they could really use some help. And I particularly think of the comparison would be, let's say we have a platoon in Los Angeles, and it's a big platoon in Los Angeles, but there's no reason for that platoon to be doing any work in Beverly Hills or
Right.
to be doing any work in Burbank. These are areas that they get plenty of resources, right? So instead, you want to focus your efforts in South Central LA, or you want to focus your efforts area where the impact is not only necessary, but it's going to be needed. It's needed. So I think that really comes back to veterans wanting to feel like they're part of a solution for the greater good, and again, feeling like their efforts are needed.
You know, I keep referring back to Houston because it's my local city.
Sure, yeah.
During the time of Hurricane Harvey and
Mhm.
God, just recently with the freeze we had down here, y- I see you guys everywhere. You guys have a big impact out here, and that's amazing to witness.
Yeah, one of the things that we really focus on, and the way you said that, you see us everywhere. That's kind of the goal for us. There are several volunteer organizations out there who will swoop in for a quick volunteer opportunity, take a lot of pictures, splash a lot of stuff on the online, right? But then you'll never see them again. And we don't want that. We want sustained impact. We want the community to get used to seeing the blue shirts. We want people to feel like it's part of their community. Originally I was living outside of Seattle, and the community that we're focused on in the Northwest is Rainier Beach, and Rainier Beach is on the south side of Seattle. So when you think of Seattle, you think of money, right? You think of Bill Gates, you think of Amazon, you think of all this tech world. And well, that's not what it's like on the South Side. The South Side is absolutely an under-resourced area that does not get a fair shake. They speak actually 8 languages within 8 square blocks. There's a strong Iraqi culture there, Somali culture, Ethiopian culture.
I would have
As a
never.
matter of fact, I ran into an individual who was an interpreter in Iraq. And when he found out that what we were doing, he was so thankful for what not only we were able to do for him downrange, but also what we were able to do for him at home. And a community like Rainier Beach, you can come in, and it's not about just going to a particular school, but about conducting operations all over that neighborhood, all over that community over a long period of time. And over the course of many years, you may have a huge effect. I was at a block party up there wearing a blue Mission Continues shirt, and I had an individual running up to me, excited to see me. He's a big guy, so he can make me a little nervous. He's running up to me, and he stops just short of me, and he goes, "Hey, the Mission Continues, the blue shirt. I remember you guys. 3 years ago, you repainted our gym and put new weights in the weight room, and that got me back in the weight room. That got me back on the football team, and now I got a partial scholarship to go to college."
Amazing.
And I was like, not saying that the Mission Continues was directly responsible, but when veterans feel like they're impacting people to go ahead and better their lives and have a better opportunity, that's a strong statement for a veteran who left the service. And maybe they had that going for them when they were going to Iraq and Afghanistan and affecting this kind of stuff. But now maybe they don't feel that as much anymore. That camaraderie is gone. So, the mission continues gives them a chance to kind of give back to the community, also a chance to kind of serve alongside their veterans again, right? There's jokes that veterans can crack that only veterans get, right? There's little things, and when you're going back into the private sector, maybe now you got to think differently. But then when you can be amongst your veterans again, you kind of let your guard down. You're amongst your tribe again, and that's an opportunity there for veterans to be able to come together even after they've transitioned.
Definitely is. And with this month being like a mental health awareness month,
Mhm.
camaraderie is one of the big things that I missed coming out of the military. And
Yeah,
I see that inside the mission continues. And that's a big thing.
me
It's
too.
mhm,
Yeah. When I left, it was the same thing with me. I thought, when I retired, I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go and retire, and I don't want to play army anymore. I don't want to go down range anymore. But I really missed being, with the soldiers. And I really missed being with, my tribe, and to be able to reconnect at the pace that you want to connect. It's not like you have to go to all the events.
right.
You can go to some events, you could be a leader, you could do whatever you want. But to give you an opportunity to reconnect at the pace that you want to do it is great for veterans to be able to ease themselves back into the private sector without feeling like they're giving up anything.
I know with the COVID this last year, I'm sure that y'all had to endure a lot of challenges. Were y'all able to maintain the mission?
Yeah, it was a challenge, right? Like everybody else, you know, COVID caught us off guard just as much as anybody else. And I can remember February of last year, January really of last year, I was in LA doing Martin Luther King weekend events. And then we left that. I went back home and I thought, okay, this is great. Next big events coming up around March, April, all that. Well, then everything changed, right? So everything changes because of COVID, and we had to adapt very quickly. So we faced some challenges of how we were going to pivot based on COVID and the social distancing and what we were going to have to do. And what we settled on was we wanted to launch an initiative that was going to directly impact those affected by COVID. So we knew that food insecurity was already a big concern amongst Americans. And then with COVID and people losing their jobs or losing sources of income or losing whatever it may be, restaurants closing and all this, and, entire industries being out of work, food insecurity became a very real problem for the average American. It no longer was an isolated problem that was happening to somebody else, but rather everybody was facing it. So we pivoted and focused on food insecurity, focused on food distribution, focused on teaching people how to grow urban gardens, things like that, things that they could do also socially distanced. We wanted to afford them opportunities to basically work at food distribution sites where they didn't have to be next to anybody, where they could socially distance and be able to follow all the COVID guidelines, all while staying focused on a mission that was very relevant to what people were going through. That was a good opportunity to pivot to that. We focused on that mission. It was called Operation Nourish. We were focused on that for quite a while. And we made a big difference. And it made a big difference, not just for the communities that we were serving, but also for the veterans who continued to feel like they were connected even during this time of COVID. We also did a lot of online events. There was a lot of training opportunity. There was a lot of opportunities for us to connect socially online. Like everybody else, I think we pivoted to a Zoom world where we were able to just kind of make things happen in the virtual space. So we basically figured out how to continue to serve our community and serve each other and stay connected, all while staying socially distanced. I'm not going to say it wasn't without challenges. It was, and there were absolutely challenges. Everybody was challenged, right? I mean, doesn't matter who you were. I think everybody's life was turned upside down. But luckily, we seem to have turned the corner, and we're moving in the direction. We're excited about getting our events started back up again. I know we have big events in Houston going on, so it's really good to see that coming around now.
I understand that y'all have several different programs within the organization. One being,
Mhm.
as you mentioned a little earlier, was the Women's Veteran Leadership Program. Can you tell me
Yep.
a little bit more about that program?
Oh man, I tell you, it started out as the Women's Veteran Leadership Summit. So years ago, we used to host a yearly summit for our women veteran. And during this time, we would bring in, empowered women leaders from around the world, and they would be able to act as mentors and coaches, and essentially get people talking about leadership development amongst our women veterans. And the interesting thing about it is that, I mentioned before that women make up um, 13% of active duty forces, but yet almost 50% of our membership. And we used to ask, why is that? Why do they make up such a large percentage of our membership base? I mean, it's hard work that we do. We're out in the community. We're working on rebuilding playgrounds, but it's about the fact that they're not told that they can't do it, that they're not told that that job is for a man. They're empowered. They go away feeling like they're not just contributing. They're part of the whole plan, and that's a strong statement to make. Statistically speaking, women are less likely to self-identify as a veteran than men. And you got to ask yourself, why is that, right? Why are men quicker to self-identify as a veteran? And I think it's because we don't empower our women veterans to be able to be on level ground with our male veterans. But at the mission continues, we don't care whether you're a man, woman, we don't care. It doesn't matter. You're leaders in the community. And we give you the same resources, the same encouragement, the same opportunities. In Houston, our platoon leaders are women, and they do amazing work. And the fact that, that nobody's telling them that they can't do it is a strong statement. We encourage them, we give them the resources that they need, we empower them. Over the course of time, that summit grew such in popularity that it basically spurred us to start an entire program developing around developing the leadership skills for our women veterans. And it's incredibly popular. We're getting ready to launch a whole new cohort. Every time we do it, we bring in some really, really strong women to go ahead and mentor our women veteran. And, it gets more and more popular every year.
I bravo on that. Like I said, it's not, women don't get enough recognition in the veteran community, and I respect, salute. Um, I, that's amazing, bud. So one of the newer programs you mentioned was Operation Nourish. Now, so did the whole program start because of the COVID, or was that an idea and COVID just kind of pushed it?
Well, prior to COVID, we did have some cities around the country that were focused on food insecurity. So there was always that as a potential for, a program or potential for an operation that we were doing in a community. What COVID did, though, is it forced us to be able to align all of our platoons on one central focus that was going to directly impact those that were impacted by COVID. So instead of, I'll give you an example, another community, another city might have been focused on schools, working in schools, which is fine, except during COVID, the schools were closed.
Right.
So, what are you going to do at that point, right? So instead, during COVID, we thought, well, we could either try to find something new for everybody, or we could rally behind what our country needs right now, which is food insecurity. And I mean, we could have gone in other directions, but there were other organizations doing other things really well, so in this case, for us, it was really about focusing on what we do best. And, we do this really well. We're connected to several food banks around the country, collected to a lot of food distribution sites, and we were able to directly affect the need that COVID had created amongst our entire country, not just communities.
That's awesome. So veteran, do you have any personal like success stories that you've witnessed with veterans coming in and maybe struggling with maybe some PTSD or things along those lines, and you just seen them evolve into the becoming the person that they are now? I bet you that's a
Sure.
witness on your side.
Yeah, I've I mean, there's so many great stories, right? And it's I don't want to necessarily name people's names, but I can give you some background. So we do have an individual who, when he came to us, as a volunteer. And the thing with the mission continues is we recognize the fact that not everybody is prepared to dive into this community impact work right off the bat. Veterans in general are maybe even a little suspicious, right? You got to sort of test the water out a little bit. You make sure that it's to your liking. So this individual would come out to one, maybe two, maybe three events, kind of off to the side, really quiet, but slowly but surely getting more and more involved. Come to find out, the particular individual was homeless at the time, um, was working to try to find work, right? So having a hard time finding a job, homeless, and came to us as an opportunity, one, to reconnect with veterans, to connect with their tribe, but also to find some purpose and some meaning, right? And to find something to plug themselves into, because when you're feeling a little lost, or you're feeling a little, rudderless, or like you're not too sure which way to go,
Right.
then you can easily go into this downward spiral of sort of this kind of heaping it all on top of you. So this individual wound up coming out to a couple of our events, connected with the platoon leader on the ground, started to really want to take a little bit more of a leadership role within the organization, decided that they wanted to seek out becoming a leader in the platoon. They became a platoon leader and they started doing events on their own. And something very sort of magical happened with that particular individual. Over the course of time, they began to develop this sense of confidence, right? Their worth was going up. And they also developed a great network because they were now able to talk to all kinds of people within the community, right? And they started to get this level of confidence that they're going to be better than what they were yesterday. So this individual wound up getting into a halfway shelter, right? A shelter, wound up finding a job, get a little bit of money, wound up getting their own place eventually, right? They had had sort of some toxic relationships in the past. They settled down into a great relationship. And now this individual is a mentor to some of the people that we have around us, and some new platoon leaders that come in. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's all the mission continues, but when you take the ingredients that we can bring together, this camaraderie, this sense of purpose, it increases your self-confidence level, and that breeds success, right? Because if you feel good about what you're doing, and you feel good about the people around you, and you feel like you're in a good place, then you're going to begin to focus on getting things together. And so we've had that. I mean, we've had other success stories too. Individuals who were really quiet and unassuming come out of their shell a little bit more. We've had individuals who've come to us having never used power tools before in their life, never thought that they could build anything in their life. And they come to us, get some skill sets. We teach them how to do this. And next thing you know, they might as well be subcontractors building on the side. So they learn how to use power tools. And, a lot of that breeds, again, confidence,
Right.
right? If you gain this confidence, it's great. And then we have several stories of individuals who were, lonely, right? Who were stuck inside. We had an individual come to us who had not left, a veteran who had not left their home for 2 years. They had had their daughter just go get groceries. And this individual finally came out of their house for a service project after 2 years, able to connect with other veterans. And they themselves, it's good for them to be able to get out and make a difference in the community. So tons of really great success stories. And every time we do a big event, we do a big project, I feel like you could line up people who have these amazing stories and just the transformation that they've experienced.
I bet you that's just awesome to witness.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's very empowering. It's very fulfilling. It's a good feeling inside.
So if there's a veteran that wants to join the mission, how do they do so?
So I would say to go check out our website at missioncontinues.org. And the important thing is that when you're on the website, you can go ahead and drill down to the particular community that you're in to find out what's available in your community. But the important thing to note is that it's not about joining the platoon and all of a sudden being a platoon leader and coming out every weekend and doing. Sometimes you might want to come out and just try it on for size, see how it fits. And you might come out there for a little bit, volunteer at a couple of events, and maybe that's enough. Maybe you want to do a little bit more. Maybe you want to volunteer on the leadership team. Maybe you want to be a platoon leader. Maybe you want to attend one of our programs. But either way, there are several outlets for you to come in and join the Mission Continues.
Now, are your programs just open to veterans, or do you accept volunteers in the community that don't necessarily have a military background?
So for our service platoons, if you're going to serve in a leadership position for the platoon, we're looking for veterans to go ahead and fill those positions. But to go and volunteer alongside our veterans, you don't have to be a veteran. And I think that's kind of an indicator also of just how inclusive our organization is also. Because a lot of veterans, when they leave the service, um, when I retired from the military, I had left Fort Drum and I retired in the Pacific Northwest where I owned a house, but that's not where I grew up. So I didn't grow up in the Pacific. So that really wasn't my community.
Right.
My kid went to high school there. So that's his community. He's got friends and everything. But for me, it wasn't my community. So for an opportunity for me to serve alongside community members and feel like they're embracing me and accepting me and standing alongside me while we work in the community, that's very therapeutic for a veteran also. So you don't have to be a veteran to work alongside. Now, to attend our Women's Veteran Leadership Program, our Service Leadership Corps, these types of programs, you do have to be a veteran for that. But you do not have to be a veteran to go out and serve alongside.
So you're so you guys are a nonprofit. If
Yep.
somebody wanted to make a donation along those lines, what is the best way for them to do so?
So you can make a donation online. Right when you go on our landing page, there's a donate button right there. We have a couple of different ways that can come in, either like a one-time donation, but we do have a giving circle, which is a reoccurring donation that occurs every month, and that gets with some benefits that come with that. A little bit more time with our president, a little bit more direct sort of contact with our programs, and sort of a inner circle of the circle. So it's a we call it our giving circle. It's certainly a good opportunity for you to give a little bit over a long period of time.
That's okay. So with some of the upcoming events, do y'all have planned? Would you like the listeners to know?
Well, the main one that I want to just draw some attention to, if I could, is the fact that this year is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Something that maybe people aren't necessarily thinking about, but 20 years ago, we had the planes fly into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. So to mark this occasion, we're actually launching Operation Enduring Service. And this is an operation that will span from July until November this year, where we'll be doing projects around the entire country that are focused on 9/11, working with first responders, working with all kinds of different types of community opportunities, all focused around that theme of enduring service and the veteran continuing their service long after the effects of 9/11. So there's that. Part of that program too, that operation, we're going to be focused in 5 major cities around the country for these signature 20th anniversary projects. So we're going to be in Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, and of course, New York and Washington, D.C. But then in the other cities around the country, to include Houston, we're going to be doing large scale 9/11 focused events that are going to be, again, designed to remind people that what happened 20 years ago will never happen again.
20 years. That's
I know, man.
isn't
It's amazing that it's been 20 years. I think about it. My son is 20 years old, and he was born in May of 2001. And I think to myself, he really doesn't have any idea of what it's like to not be at war over 9/11.
yeah. And to think that I think the majority of veterans or majority of military going in right now weren't even born, probably.
Nope, they
It's
weren't. I can remember exactly where I was on the day of the towers, and I remember exactly what I was doing. But you're right. Young men and women going in now weren't even born yet. So
and that event is what catapulted me into wanting to join the
did
military.
it?
Yes, it did. And
So let me ask you this. So when that happened, were you in school? Was it something where it spurred you to join? I'm interested.
I'll be completely honest with you. I was had a little downtime, so I had just graduated school in I think May of September. No, May, excuse me, of that year. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, I graduated high school, and before I decided what I wanted to do, I was thinking, maybe college, maybe, the military. I had always talked about it, but I was actually I was recovering from a party that we had the night before, And
Fair.
I had a buddy of mine come on and turn the TV on, and this is when I witnessed the second plane hitting the tower. And I told my buddy, I was like, "Hey, what movie is this?" And he's like, it's not a movie. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "It's happening in real life." So I panicked because I I s- I have a lot of family that works downtown Houston, and I thought that that's where it was at. So once I found out all the information, I was just left. I, it pushed me. It was I had to do something to make a difference, and I felt like joining the military was the best way. It definitely uh, I I didn't want it to happen again, and
Yeah.
along those lines, um, it's just
I mean, yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And I can remember I was teaching. So did you serve in the Army?
yes, sir.
And is that it? So I was teaching at PLD, it used to be called PLDC, at Fort Stewart, Georgia, where I was stationed. And the way Fort Stewart is set up, the PLDC is located about 20 miles off of the base. So I had duty the night before, and I was driving back home from work in the morning, and I had to go through Fort Stewart to get to my house, which was on the other side. And so I went through the first gate, and the gate guard had told me what was happening, but only one tower had fallen at the time. And by the time I got home, I walked into my house, and my wife was watching TV with my young son. He was born in May of that year, and we watched the second tower fall. And I remember looking at my wife, thinking like this, everything's going to change.
Everything.
Because prior to that, a long deployment in the military meant going to JRTC or going to the National Training Center or something like that. But now I knew that this was going to be something big. I could feel it. And I had reenlisted indefinite. So I knew that I was in it for the long haul. And we knew that things were going to be very different for the next 10 years at least, and they were. And but yeah, I think everybody has. It's funny, you mentioned your story, and I know my story. And um, our vice president of communications, she was working downtown in New York when it happened.
Oh wow.
Um, so, everybody sort of has this story around it. And I think that that's kind of what the Operation Enduring Service is kind of focused on, is the fact that it's a national, it's a national situation that touched us all, but it touched us all in different ways. And those stories intertwined make up the fabric of our response to what went on. Because you went into, I was already in the military, it spurred you to join the military. Maybe you have other people, it spurred them to do something else. And and everybody, we all kind of adapted differently. So I would even love, when this is over, I'd love to kind of even capture that story for our organization, because I think that everybody's story is valuable. And like I said, together they make up that tapestry of our response.
My first duty station was Fort Stewart.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what I'm talking about then, how you have to go out to Pembroke, Georgia to go to PLDC. Yeah, I was stationed out there right at that time. So
First Brigade, the Rock of the Morn.
Rock of the Marne, yeah.
I did some time in Iraq
The
with.
dog-faced soldier right there. So, yep.
I say I wouldn't give a bean.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Fort Stewart was good, but yeah, that's where it was at the time. So, but I'll never forget exactly how that went down that day. And I think that everybody remembers sort of exactly to the details. So, but we're looking forward to that for this year. I think that's our primary focus this year, to remind people, because I think a lot of people forget that it is the 20th anniversary. It's easy to kind of forget, right?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I didn't realize how the amount of time that's gone, that's passed. I definitely didn't.
Yeah, so we'll have events everywhere. And certainly I would encourage all of your listeners to check on the website and find an opportunity to get involved. So,
Yes, sir. And I'll definitely push it and make sure I have
yeah.
all my friends there as well.
Yeah.
Doug, I want to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on to the show. Is there anything else that you would like to push out before we cut out?
No, once again, I just want to make sure that people know that they can just go on the website and check us out. We are an incredibly inclusive organization. I don't, we don't say no to people based on discharges or anything like that. We want to give veterans an opportunity to come out and serve their community and make a difference. And I think that everybody has that within them. It's really just about awakening it and getting people out there. So certainly check us out at missioncontinues.org.
Again, thank you, Doug. I appreciate you being on the show. As always, everybody, Charlie Mike.
Thanks.